The night was heavy with a hum of cicadas and the low electric buzz of a charger warming to life. Marcus tightened the cable into his car and exhaled. He had worked for years to earn this driveway, this home, this car, and now this charger was a small monument to that progress. The glow of the charger display threw a faint blue across the dark yard. He had barely stepped back when a sudden flood of white light cut through the quiet. A voice sharp and dripping with authority pierced the calm. "This is community property. Unplug it right now." Marcus blinked into the glare. Standing on the sidewalk was Kerren, her HOA badge clipped proudly to her chest, clipboard clutched like a shield. Her eyes narrowed with satisfaction that did not match the ridiculousness of her claim. She stepped closer, heels crunching against the gravel. "You cannot hoard this. Everyone in the neighborhood has the right to use it." Marcus froze between disbelief and rising anger. He forced his voice low, calm, deliberate. "This is my charger on my property." Kerren scoffed, flipping through her notes. "When you place something visible to the public, it becomes public. Same as the sidewalk. Same as the mailbox. Same as the landscaping. You think you are special because you drive one of those cars. You are not." Her words carried the sharp sting of something more than rule enforcement. Marcus had seen in her eyes during past encounters over grass height, over mailbox paint, over the length of his curtains. Now it was undeniable. She was less interested in fairness and more in control. He took a step closer until the charger display illuminated his face. "This does not belong to the HOA. It belongs to me." Kerren leaned in as if daring him to challenge her authority. "We will see about that." The words lodged in Marcus's chest long after she turned and vanished into the shadows. He looked back at the quiet hum of his car charging. The cable pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and calm. But inside him, anger spread in waves. The next morning, the problem grew sharper. A paper taped across his door screamed with bold letters. "Failure to share community resources will result in fines." Signed with the neat looping signature of Kerren. He pulled it free and read it twice, disbelief giving way to frustration. She had turned a personal obsession into an official decree. By afternoon, whispers drifted across the street. Neighbors glanced at him with wary curiosity. He caught fragments of their conversations. "He is hoarding." She said the HOA approved it. "We should all get a turn." His jaw tightened. Kerren had been busy spinning her story, and people were starting to believe her. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table sipping coffee, hands clenched around the mug. He had worked double shifts, saved every dollar, built that charger himself. It was not a toy, and it was not free. It represented hours of sweat and sacrifice. He thought of his father telling him that every achievement must be guarded because someone will always try to take it. He realized he was staring at the charger through the kitchen window, as if it were a target in the crosshairs. The HOA meeting came quickly. He arrived early, hoping logic might end the madness. Inside the community hall, neighbors filled plastic chairs, and the smell of stale coffee hung in the air. Kerren sat at the front, like a queen on her throne, clipboard ready. When Marcus explained that the charger was private property, she cut him off mid-sentence. "Private, or not if it is out front, it served the neighborhood. We all sacrifice for the greater good. Do you think you are exempt because you own a shiny toy?" Murmurs stirred through the room. Some nodded while others frowned uncertain. Marcus raised his voice firm but respectful. "It is not a toy. It is an investment I made for myself and for the environment. The HOA has no jurisdiction over my driveway." Kerren slapped her pen against the clipboard. "You may think that, but we will enforce community standards. If you will not comply, we will issue penalties." Her arrogance filled the room, leaving Marcus with a bitter taste of helplessness. He sat down, pulse hammering in his temples. Logic had no place here. Kerren was not seeking fairness. She was seeking submission. That night, his anger sharpened into resolve. He stood by the charger, listening to the hum of current flowing into his car. The same glow that once comforted him now felt like bait dangling before a predator. His neighbors might still believe Kerren's lies. The HOA might try to fine him, but he would not fold. From the shadows across the street came the faint beam of a flashlight. Someone lingered by the edge of his lawn, watching, perhaps waiting. He gripped the charger cable tighter, his mind racing. The game had changed. Kerren was not going to stop. Marcus whispered to himself, steady and deliberate. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. The night air thickened with silence and the promise of conflict. He knew reason had failed. The next move would not be made in meetings or through polite words. It would be something else, something sharper, something Kerren would never see coming. And with that thought burning through him, Marcus stepped inside, leaving the charger pulsing like a beacon in the dark. Marcus spent the next morning studying the HOA notice as if it were a blueprint to his enemy's mind. Every word screamed of Kerren's control obsession and her belief that authority could bend truth to her will. He knew reason was useless. He needed evidence. He needed a plan that would not only protect his charger, but also expose her arrogance for what it truly was. At work, he sketched diagrams on scrap paper. Circuits, switches, outlets. He imagined a system that would record everything without ever alerting her. The thought of turning her own entitlement into a weapon against her carried a grim satisfaction. By the time he drove home, his chest was light with determination. That night, he crouched beside the charger tools spread around him. A small camera hidden in a weatherproof casing slid into place just above the unit. A second one, angled from the porch, captured the driveway. He wired a dummy port beside the real one, a false access point that looked functional but carried no current. A sign appeared above it in bold black marker. HOA Community Port. Plug in at your own risk. He smiled at the irony. Days passed and the trap stood waiting. Marcus kept his routine unchanged. Plug in after work. Unplug in the morning. Waved to neighbors, though their responses were more cautious than before. Rumors spread like wildfire, and he could feel Kerren's presence, even when she was not visible. She was working the neighborhood, convincing them of her version of fairness. Friday evening, the trap finally caught its prey. Marcus sat inside with the lights dimmed, watching the monitor. Kerren marched up the driveway with the certainty of someone who believed the world existed to serve her. Her SUV idled at the curb. She unplugged Marcus's car, without hesitation tossed the cable aside like trash, and dragged her own cord to the false port. The camera recorded her triumphant smirk as she announced to no one in particular, "This belongs to all of us now." Her car failed to charge. She frowned, tapped the charger, kicked it lightly. Broken already. Typical. She glanced at Marcus's window, as if daring him to appear, then stormed away. Minutes later, her SUV roared off. Marcus replayed the footage twice, savoring every frame. He had proof now undeniable and clear. Yet he knew Kerren would not stop. He needed more. The following day, two neighbors tried the false port encouraged by Kerren's gossip. Both failed. Both left confused. Marcus smiled grimly. The more attempts, the stronger his case would be. By Monday, the HOA letter arrived. Bold words accused him of obstructing community property. Fines would be issued if he continued to deny access. He read it at his desk calm in a way he had not expected. Every line of accusation would collapse under the weight of the evidence. That night, he sat outside on the porch charger, humming softly beside him. The camera light blinked red like an eye recording each second. He pictured Kerren storming into the next meeting confident and smug. He pictured the crowd turning silent as the footage played. He pictured her face cracking under the truth. But even as he savored the thought, a deeper fire stirred in him. This was no longer just about a charger. It was about dignity, about drawing a line that no one, not even a self-appointed queen with a clipboard, could cross. His father's words echoed in his head. Stand tall when they try to push you down. Across the street, Kerren's porch light flickered on. Her silhouette stood rigid against the glow. He imagined her plotting, drafting more notices, more lies, more tricks. He almost pitied her. Almost. Marcus whispered to himself, steady and certain. You have written your own ending. I am only going to show it to you. The night air pressed close, heavy with anticipation. The trap was no longer just waiting. It was ready to spring. And when it did, Kerren would discover that the very arrogance she wielded like a weapon had been sharpened against her. The community hall buzzed with the low murmur of neighbors waiting for meeting to begin. Marcus walked in carrying a small laptop under his arm. Every step measured, every breath steady. Kerren sat at the front already smiling, as if victory was certain, clipboard balanced across her knees. She spotted Marcus and tilted her chin upward, a queen awaiting a subject's surrender. When his turn to speak arrived, Marcus rose calmly and set the laptop on the table. He pressed a key, and the screen came alive. The first video played in sharp detail. Kerren marching into his driveway, unplugging his car, and declaring the Charger community property. Gasps rippled across the room. Kerren shifted in her seat, her smile flickering. The next clip rolled. Neighbors attempting to use a false port confusion painted across their faces as nothing happened. Marcus paused the video long enough to speak. "This is my Charger on my property. What you just saw is trespassing. And here are the energy logs proving no one but me has ever drawn power from it." He clicked again, and charts filled the screen, numbers precise, indisputable. The room grew still. Kerren leapt to her feet, voice sharp. "He is manipulating the footage. This is a setup." A neighbor shook his head. "I saw you there, Kerren. You told us it was public." Another added, "You said the HOA approved it." Murmurs turned to open criticism. Faces at once nodded in agreement with her now twisted in doubt and irritation. Marcus remained silent, letting the weight of the evidence press down. Kerren's voice grew shrill, her composure cracking. "He thinks he is better than us with his fancy car. People like him do not." She stopped, but it was too late. The words hung poisonous in the air. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by silence sharp as broken glass. The board members exchanged glances, pale and uneasy. One cleared his throat. "This is not HOA policy. We never authorized that notice. This was one person acting on her own." Another added quietly, "We will retract the fines immediately." Kerren's face flushed crimson. She sputtered excuses, but the crowd had already turned. Some laughed openly, others shook their heads in disgust. For the first time, Marcus saw fear in her eyes. The fear of power slipping away. He closed the laptop slowly. "I asked for respect. Nothing more." His words landed heavy but calm. The meeting ended in a blur of whispers and pointed glares directed at Kerren. She stumbled from the hall, her authority shattered. That night, Marcus uploaded the footage with a single caption. "HOA, Kerren thought my EV Charger was public property, so I let her prove it." Within hours, views climbed thousands upon thousands. Comments poured in mocking her arrogance, celebrating his patience. Local news picked up the story. By morning, memes spread across social media, painting her as the face of entitlement undone by her own words. The HOA scrambled to distance themselves, issuing a statement apology. Neighbors who once eyed Marcus with suspicion now stopped to shake his hand. A few even asked his advice about installing Chargers of their own. The shift was small but meaningful. Respect reclaimed. Kerren drove past his house, the following evening, her SUV engine roaring louder than necessary. She stared straight ahead, refusing to glance his way. Marcus sat on his porch, coffee in hand, watching the Charger glow steady blue. He felt no need to wave, no need to gloat. The silence of her humiliation was more satisfying than any words. He leaned back against a chair, whispering to himself. Arrogance always trips on its own feet. The night air was cool, the hum of the Charger steady, like a victory song. For the first time in weeks, he felt peace settle across him. Yet deep inside, he knew Kerren's kind never vanished completely. They waited, they plotted, they returned in new forms. But he also knew that evidence, patience, and a little cleverness would always cut through their noise. And as the Charger pulsed in the dark like a beacon, he smiled, ready for whatever storm might try to rise again. The sun dipped low, and the neighborhood glowed with the warm orange of evening. Marcus sat on his porch sipping coffee, letting the quiet hum of his Charger fill the air. Weeks had passed since the meeting in the viral storm, but the tension lingered like smoke after a fire. Neighbors greeted him now with cautious respect, some with genuine warmth. Yet he felt the shadow of Kerren's presence, even when she was not seen. Her silence was not surrender. It was calculation. One evening, Marcus returned home to find a fresh notice stuck to his door. This one was not signed by the HOA board, but by Kerren herself, scrawled in angry loops. "You may have fooled them, but this is not over." He read it twice, then folded it neatly, placing it on the counter. There was no panic, only resolve. He knew a final confrontation was inevitable, and he was ready. The following week, he noticed Kerren lingering across the street. She no longer hid behind formalities or meetings. She watched openly, eyes sharp with resentment. He could feel the weight of her glare, but he gave her nothing. He mowed his lawn. He watered his plants. He plugged in his car. Each act ordinary yet defiant. One night, he heard the soft scrape of footsteps outside. He rose quietly and peered from the window. Kerren crouched by the charger, tugging at the cables with frantic hands. He stepped onto the porch, his voice steady, looking for something. She froze and straightened her face, twisted with fury. You humiliated me. You turned them all against me. Do you think you won? Marcus took a slow step forward, the porch light spilling over both of them. I did not turn anyone. You did that yourself. Her voice cracked between anger and desperation. This neighborhood belongs to people who care about it, not to outsiders who think they can flaunt their toys and make their own rules. The words hit with the weight of her true feelings laid bare. Marcus let the silence stretch until her breathing grew uneven. Then he spoke firm and unshaken. This charger is not just a piece of equipment. It is my work, my sacrifice, my right. You tried to take that because you thought no one would stop you, but you were wrong. Kerren's hands trembled at her sides. She looked toward the street as though expecting allies to step from the shadows, but none came. The neighborhood had seen her unmasked, and no one was coming to save her. Marcus lifted his phone and held it up. The red recording light glowed in the dark. Keep going. Show them who you are one more time. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She backed away slowly, her confidence draining with every step. At the curb, she turned sharply, climbing into her SUV and slamming the door. The engine roared, then faded into the distance, leaving only silence behind. Marcus lowered the phone and stood for a long moment under the glow of the porch light. The conflict that had consumed his nights had reached its peak and broken. He felt no triumph, only the steady calm of justice completed. The next morning, news spread quickly. Neighbors whispered about Kerren's late-night outburst. Some had caught fragments of her shouting carried through the still air. Others had seen her flight from his driveway. Whatever doubts lingered before now vanished. Kerren was finished. Within days, she resigned from the HOA. The statement posted to the community board was curt and bitter, but final. She had lost her throne and her voice. Marcus walked through the neighborhood and for the first time felt the air lighter. Neighbors stopped to chat, asked about EV charging, or complimented his perseverance. The charger that had once been a symbol of division now stood as a quiet monument to endurance. That evening, he sat again on his porch, the car humming with power flowing steady and clean. The sun dipped beyond the trees, leaving the sky a soft violet. He thought of his father's words about standing tall. He thought of every long hour of work that had brought him here. He thought how arrogance had tried to strip it away and failed. A smile touched his lips as he whispered, "You cannot steal what was earned." The night settled calm and sure around him. The battle was done. The lesson clear. Entitlement had tried to claim his effort, but in the end it had only destroyed itself. And as the charger pulsed steady in the darkness, Marcus felt peace at last, knowing that some victories are not loud, but enduring, quiet, and absolute.